I know that I started having corruption issues at the last part of during reading strategies part two. And so I'll go over that last strategy, monitoring comprehension, as well as after reading strategies. So again, monitoring comprehension, and the symbol is MC, is all about when recognizing when your comprehension breaks down and what you do to repair your comprehension. So, for example, if you're reading along and all of a sudden you're lost, you don't understand, what do? Do you reread? And sometimes you have to. You have to reread the entire paragraph or maybe just the sentence before, or keep reading and seeing if you can figure out where you got confused and you can get some clarification with the text afterward. Sometimes it's as simple as figuring out some unfamiliar vocabulary using context clues. In the same sentence or the very next sentence, a synonym or an antonym for an unfamiliar word. Sometimes authors will define in the very sentence or the sentence afterward what a certain term, especially if it's a disciplinary term, what that term means. So there are various ways that you can repair your comprehension, and it's important that you recognize when it breaks down and then write that symbol and then tell me what you did to repair your comprehension. And after you get very fluent in this, you'll notice that you have fewer and fewer MC annotations because you don't get lost as much in your reading. Okay, now in your Cornell notes, we're going to go to our last big idea, and that is after reading strategies. So, what do we do when we wrap up our reading? Well, the first thing that I like to do is do a rhetorical analysis. So, that is MAPS, MAPS. That's a good way to remember it. And it's an acronym for mode, audience, purpose, situation. So as soon as I'm done reading, I look at the mode of the piece. And that is basically the genre or the structure. So is it an argument, a short story? Is it a novel? If so, what kind of novel? And then I want students to provide evidence for how do you know that this particular piece of text is that genre, fits that genre? What's your evidence? Audience, or the A stands for audience, and I basically want you to tell me who the target audience is for the text. So, who is the author targeting when he or she is writing this text, and how do you know? So, again, provide that textual evidence. The P stands for purpose. What is the author's purpose? And as long as you provide me textual evidence to support what you believe the author's purpose is, that's all I'm asking for. And then the S stands for situation. So in the context of reading, it's a little bit different than in writing. In the context of reading, it's basically thinking about whose story is this and why is it important? Well, obviously, it's we can take it literally and it's the author's story. But most of the time, you have to take it that next step and figuratively, whose story is this? Um, and I want you to really think about um, basically the author's purpose as well as the audience when you're thinking about whose story is being told here. And then the second part, why is it important? If it's important enough that instructors want you to read a text, then it probably has a good chance of having some real value, and your instructors want you to understand what that value is. Why is this important that we're reading this material? And that's rhetorical analysis. And then the next thing that I would want you to do is to summarize. Summarizing is the ultimate synthesis. So whether you're summarizing just the ideas in one text or summarizing ideas and then synthesizing across text is really important. It's on Bloom's taxonomy. It's right there at the very top. And so it depends if you're reading a fiction or nonfiction. I'm going to show you how evidence-based research practices have supported how to summarize nonfiction. And then I'm going to share with you some evidence-based practice for how to summarize fiction in the metacognitive Think Aloud videos. Let's see. Something else that we do, another strategy, is evaluating text, and that's E. the symbols E. So when I see that, I want to see your analysis for whether or not this is a credible piece of text, which is very, very important when we're evaluating nonfiction texts. Is it strictly uninformed opinion that you're reading? Is there factual information? Is the information supported by an expert's opinion in the field? Is there bias? How does that bias play into your overall research? These are all things that you're going to look for. What are the credentials of the person writing the text? And this will be very text, and we'll obviously be going over that throughout the semester. What else? We oftentimes, this is where, and this plays in with the rhetorical analysis, we look for patterns of organization, and that is PO, the symbol. And so we're looking for how does the author use compare, contrast, argument, cause effect, narrative, that sort of thing. So recognizing the markers for those organizational comprehension. And then lastly, it's really important that we discuss text. And you know that I'm a social constructivist by now, and I really like when students get together and collaborate. Everyone brings their own personal experiences, their own personal knowledge base into discussions and activities, group activities. And this is where we really learn from each other. And through learning from each other, you create a new knowledge base of information and understanding and perspective, oftentimes. Okay, so that concludes our after reading strategy video. And now please go and view the how to apply these strategies, and then also how to summarize fiction and nonfiction texts and conduct rhetorical analyses of those texts.